Hello everyone. In today's episode of Suha Coaching Vault SCV, we have the honor to receive one of the experienced leadership coach and expert from India, Dr. Murali. I'm very pleased to have you in this episode of SCV. Dr. Murali and I, we met in the journey of getting certified in EQ. However, he has the PCC level, the professional certification from ICF, International Coach Federation, and I'm still learning from him. I'm just started my journey. So, Dr. Murali, tell us more a little bit about yourself and how you get hooked into the leadership space.
Yeah, thank you, Suha, for having me on this podcast. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be speaking with you. Yeah, like you said, we started and we got to know each other in a journey on EQ. Specifically for me, I believe that leaders and leadership has a great influence on the organization. So I became very curious as to what can we do to help this group of people to positively impact organizations. So that was my interest. Personally speaking, I don't have a formal education in psychology or management. I hold a PhD in mathematics. That's where I come from. So being so rational, very abstract, to moving into studying human beings is a fascinating journey by itself. In this process, what I realized is that it is always good to have both the rational and the emotional side to be able to understand a human being. So I think my experience tells me that that's a holistic way of understanding a human being. So that's what I have been able to experience. I live and work in a city called India. I have been holding various senior level positions in IT services companies. The last job that I had was with a company where I was a senior vice president of talent development and leadership development. IT services companies do have challenges. I mean, it's a very young industry. So leadership again is very young people become leaders very quickly in these companies. So helping them figure out how to really go about leading people was what I was interested in and doing. So that's a bit about me, Susan.
Good. And I want to ask a question about how you get hooked with the psychology and understanding the human nature in order, of course, to know how to guide them and teach them about leadership.
Yeah, that's a good question. So my first job when I started in the industry was as a trainer, as a technology trainer. So I used to go and teach people various topics, technology topics. However, what really kind of I became curious about was, why do people learn? What really makes people want to learn, right? Especially new things. And in IT services, technology is highly obsolescence, right? What you know 6 months ago is old and outdated. You have to learn constantly. So I got curious about that, and then one thing led to another, and I went into development psychology, adult psychology, and I do read quite a bit. So all the readings took me to the place where I am right now.
Perfect. And if I want to ask about what's there for the leaders, what's the future of leadership? What do you think about what's coming, what's next, especially that we are facing lots of disruption, lots of changes, and you're coming from an IT background, so definitely you know what's there, what was before, and what's coming. So can you tell us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a couple of things that are happening in the world, and I would first kind of allude to them before I go and talk about what kind of leaders we need, right? What kind of leadership skills are required. So I think the world is changing. World has been changing in the past, but the rate of change and the pace of change is very, very high right now. Things are changing very fast. And there is a lot of uncertainty, ambiguity in the marketplace. World is much more networked, connected than it was in the past. Something that happens in the distant part of the world can impact a group of people living on the other side of the planet, right? So there's a huge amount of connection, huge amount of systemic, issues that are coming up. In system thinking, we talk about two kinds of complexities, right? So one is called as detailed complexity, and another one is called the dynamic complexity. Detailed complexity is, is something that you can actually kind of figure it out because it's complex. However, if you get to the details, you can really figure it out, right? However, dynamic complexity is emergent. You don't really know how this complexity kind of, it's like the path of a river when it's in flooding. When the river is flooded, how does the water flow? Nobody can really predict. So I think that's where the world is going, and leaders have to have capacities to be able to deal with this. I always believe that leadership development, if you really take a decade ago, focused on competencies and capabilities, right? Leader has to be strategic. Leader has to be, being able to deal with, grow the business and stuff like that. There were competencies. The leadership of the future would really be focused on capacities. I think that's a big shift in the way we would like to develop leaders. So what I mean by capacities is emotional intelligence, for example, is a capacity that a leader needs to deepen for him or her to kind of lead in the future, right? Skills are necessary, but not sufficient for them to lead. What is required is the deep capacity. Emotional intelligence is one of those capacities. Resilience is another capacity, right? Being able to self-manage and self-regulate is a deeper capacity. So these capacities is what we will be focusing on. And obviously, the whole methodology to develop or deepen capacities will be very different and has to be very different than what we do in our classrooms today.
Okay, so you're saying something very important, that skills is not much required as much as the deep capacity, which is some of them, the EQ, the resilience, as you said. So that's interesting. How did you reach that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, this is not my own finding. I as a leader of a learning organization, I personally would undertake different learning experiences to deepen my own capacities. And what I realized is that such learning experiences have helped me to become a better person, better human being, and also a better leader, right? So I think that's one. The second part is my mentor, with whom I have been working for almost 4 or 5 years now. She tells me that leadership is not about developing behaviors for a specific situation. Leadership is about having the capacity or the range of behaviors to be able to deal with different kinds of situations that one would encounter, right? So the question is, how can I really have that range? And the range would come only if I have deeper capacity, right? And of course, there is also literature and research done around this on capabilities, competencies, and capacities that leaders need to have.
Perfect. Very interesting. So, Dr. Murali, you think that EQ is very important in the future? How?
Yes.
Whether that we are having the AI competing with us as a human brain? Wow.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting question that you pose. And the response that I have is nobody or no human being became redundant when the wheel was invented. That was the first discovery, right? So every discovery or every advancement that the human mind can think of only aids the human mind and challenges the human mind to become more expansive as well, right? So I go back to the quote of Einstein. Einstein says that we need different levels of consciousness to solve problems from the ones which created them, right? So I don't think AI will certainly change the way we live and think and do our work on this planet. It will certainly do that. It will have an impact. It will have a deep impact. However, I believe that human beings will be engaged in pursuits of very different kind than what they are doing today. One simple example, I believe, is things where human potential is not used at all, like physical labor, for example, where just physical labor, you don't have to think at all, and you just have to use your physical strength to do some work. All that will get automated and replaced.
Yeah.
Right. But I think the thinking part, I don't think human beings will be able to create machines which can think more and better and faster than their own minds.
Okay. So you don't think they will compete us?
Absolutely. Because you see, I mean, at least to my logical and rational side tells me that you cannot create something. It can do repetitive work. It can do much faster work than what a human being can do. However, the mind's capacity is is infinite. I don't think we can replicate that, and that's what I'm thinking at this point in time. So human beings will be engaged in pursuits that really require deep level of intelligence, deep level of thinking and all that. So I don't think AI is going to be competing with us. AI would be more complementing the human thinking and
I totally, this is a debatable. However, yes, I see your point of view where you are coming from, because there is layers and layers in the way that the human think, and because of the AI is a machine, so it needs time maybe to solve the algorithm things to reach that layer, and in depth for us as a human, we reach the human, much faster, and we reach the emotional part of the game, which the AI still maybe they have it, or lack it, and some of them they are debating, no, we're gonna create an AI with the human let's say the EQ conscious or something. That's interesting. I think we are in a very good stage of life, or let's say civilization, that we are noticing this kind of development, this kind of new revolution, honestly. So if we go back to the leadership, let's say, concept. So does leader born or shape or made? What do you think about that? This is a very good, let's say, debate in every
I think I think this is one of the unsolved mysteries of whether it's nature or nurture. I think personally speaking, I'm a very strong believer, and this comes from my belief. I don't have data. My belief is that every human being who's born on this planet has the capacity to lead, can become a leader. I think some of us get the opportunity. Some of us get those those opportunities to lead. Now, when I say lead, it need not necessarily be in a position of power or authority, right? Even in dire situations, even in very difficult situations, you see human beings, coming up and taking up, ownership, taking up leadership positions and leading groups of people, right? People who are in real struggle. And we have seen this happen through the history of mankind. And I believe that capacity is there in all of us, and it can be developed. So there is something that is part of the nature, right, which we are born with. And there is something that can be developed and that can be kind of sharpened and shaped and given, given some, some direction and some help. Everybody can really hone their leadership skills.
I totally understand. Yeah, that people can be or leaders can be born. However, sometimes if you notice some of their families, let's say, depress them or compress their capacities, maybe there will be, let's say, a need to reshape these skills. Yeah, I understand that totally. So we can take it that everyone has leadership competencies. However, with the time and family and other, let's say, external factors, it can be affected. So what's a new trend in leadership? Tell us more, because I think, or I believe that you are one of the experts in the leadership development. So what are the new trends? What are going there? So can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, sure. I think one trend that I'm seeing, and I think we'll see more of this as I speak, is instead of having one leader, you're going to have a group of leaders, right? It's a leadership team that's really going to kind of lead organizations. It's not just one person. I think the heroic leadership era is gone. This charismatic leader who comes in and turns around an organization, I don't think that's going to happen anymore. You're going to have a group of leaders, each one capable and having different capacities, coming together to be able to do that. That is one thing that I'm seeing. Second thing is the era of command and control. Authoritarian leaders are a passe. I don't think that's going to really work in the current day world. It has to be more egalitarian, more democratic, more humanistic leadership style that you would be seeing. There may be one or two people who are the face of the company or the organization, but I think everybody celebrates humanistic leader, a leader who is more humane than a person who is really achieving results. That is another one. The third one is the ability to inspire and facilitate, groups of people to navigate the challenges or the issues or things that they're facing. I think that's again a new trend that I'm seeing.
Wow, I need to pause on that point. Honestly, they are very informative. So the trends of leadership as per your perspective, and I totally agree on the group leadership. Yes, we are going towards not the one leader who can, of course, represent everything. There is a group of leadership. It's a collective, let's say, skills of these people to lead the organization, the country, whatever. So it's a group leadership. That's one thing. The other thing you said is there's a face of the organization, or let's say the charismatic leader. It has to be there. However, we have a group leadership leading the organization, but the face is a necessary or a necessity. The third thing that you said is about, if you can remind me.
Yeah. It is about being very humanistic. And humane.
Okay. So people should lead with human factor.
Humanity.
Yeah, humanitarian factor should be, let's say, enlarged, not just okay, I get you. I think I'm trying to relate this to, let's say, the social factor, the political factor, the socio, they call it the geopolitical, all these things. Yes, these three, let's say, factors or facts are very trendy now, and this is the future face of leadership, I guess. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And thank you for informing us about this point. It's It's very informative. If we need to know about your work, what's coming and what are you doing? Have you been in the region? I know that you've been in the region, and maybe UAE or Saudi Arabia. So can you tell us more and how we can benefit from these experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think my endeavor is to develop leaders, especially young people, who are getting into leadership positions, and support them with whatever necessary capacities that they need, right? So in that regard, I'm drawn to some work that has been done in this area. One of the work is a work done by a person called Bill Joyner. Bill Joyner wrote a book many years ago called Leadership Agility. And I think what Bill talks about is he talks about leadership in two dimensions. It's not just one dimension. There is vertical development, and as well as there is horizontal development. A leader can deepen their skills, but there are also levels and stages of the same skill, right? Same competence. So I think I'm drawn by that. Of course, I'm trained to administer the tool and then coach people using that. I believe that's a very useful tool, especially given the kind of change many of these leaders are experiencing in their workplace. So that is one thing that I use to help them. I also use another tool called the Lumina Spark, which combines the Jungian view of personality to the 5-factor personality model. So it's a combination of both. So we get to get a very holistic view of the individual, right? And then we can obviously self-awareness, as you probably know, self-awareness is very key for a leader, for them to lead themselves first, so that they're in a position to lead others. So I use these tools in helping leaders or groups of leaders to kind of develop their own leadership skills, right? As far as the region is concerned, I'm really very keen on working in the region, and I'm really looking forward for some partnerships where I can come and help leaders. And I believe that this region has a huge potential to create global leaders, right? To be able to really create organizations that have presence across the globe and can actually influence, so to speak, some of the global trends. So I'm really interested to come over to Kuwait or to any other country where there might be a need, and share my experiences and my work as well.
Good, perfect. Before we conclude today's podcast, I want to ask you a little bit of, let's say, personal questions about your interest, the books that you recommend to our audience. What's your recommendation? What's your interest? Let's say how they can develop the leadership, not just by training courses or coaching, maybe by books, by sports. What's your opinion in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently, I'm really interested in facilitation as a process. So I read a lot of books on that. There are quite a few books on facilitative leadership. How can leaders be facilitative? One of the books is written by a Finnish facilitator. His name is Pepe Nuni. It's called The Facilitative Leader. And then another book on the same topic written by a friend of mine called his name is Sanjay Dugar, and Sanjay has written a book on facilitative leadership as well. So I think what they're trying to say is that the skills that are required to facilitate, to help and support a group of people is what the skills that are required to lead in the current scenarios. You can't be very directive, you can't be very prescriptive. You have to really be able to facilitate. So I think that's a very interesting book that I would encourage your listeners to read. I'm also reading a book by Jonathan Donahue, and this is slightly a philosophical book. This is called Beauty. Jonathan, I mean, I've not completed the book yet, but I'm reading, and the sense I'm getting is Jonathan's premise is that there is beauty everywhere in this world. And the moment you are able to see beauty in everything that's around you, there is compassion. You need to have compassion to be able to see beauty. I mean, I think that's what he's trying to say. So I believe that in the current day world, you need leaders to be compassionate. So how can I really notice and see the beauty that exists on this planet rather than just see the uglier side and things like that. So I think that's a very good book that I'm reading as well. Yeah, there are quite a few other books on coaching. I'm also quite interested in different types of coaching and different models. One of the books that has really deeply impacted me is a book by Drake that's called Narrative Coaching. It uses the stories, the stories that we tell ourselves, and how can we, if we change the story, how can we really bring about the change that we want to bring about in our lives, right? That is one. So yeah, so these are some of the books that I'm currently reading and I'm interested in.
Good. Aside from coaching books, any other, let's say, novel or something you get affected by, or?
Yeah. I think though I don't read much of fiction, but in the categories of non-fiction, or in the categories, they are not fiction, but they're real stories. There are two books that have deeply impacted me. One book is called The Last Lecture. This is a book that was written by Randy Pausch. Randy was a professor of computer science at Carnegie Mellon, and he died of pancreatic cancer. And before dying, he gave a lecture as if it was his last lecture. It's a wonderful book. Lot of messages. I think even for a 60-year-old man like me, we can learn a lot. I'm sure youngsters can pick up a lot from that book. So that book has deeply impacted me. There's another book that's written by another person called Paul Kalanidhi. Paul Kalanidhi was a neurosurgeon, or studying to become a neurosurgeon. And again, he was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and he passed away. The book is called When Breath Becomes Air. So Paul is a surgeon, but I like the style of the book. The book is written as if it's a piece of literature, and the language and the anecdotes. I think it's a wonderful book. And again, it talks about Paul's life, gives you a glimpse of his life and how he kind of how he spent his days, and it's a wonderful book, and it also deeply impacted me as well.
Perfect. So I think, yes, leaders need to read in different, let's say, areas, not just leadership. They need to get some different aspects, some different outlooks, so they can develop their skills. I really appreciate these books, and I'm gonna honestly, the last lecture I read it before, yes, and it was really impactful and amazing book. And I'm gonna post it to the listeners and readers to check their bookstores next to them, so they can get them.
Yeah, there's another book by two Japanese authors. I forget the name of the authors, but it's a good book. It's called Courage to be Disliked.
Courage to be Disliked. Amazing. Courage to be disliked.
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 Yeah. This is based on Adler's work, and it's written as a dialogue between two people. In a dialogue form. Very wonderfully written book, and they kind of lay out Adler's theories on being on psychology. Yeah, so it's a wonderful book. good to
I
read.
think, yeah, I think also leaders need to accept that sometimes they have to be disliked. That's a good thing. Okay. So, Dr. Murali, I really appreciate your time with us, and I'm looking forward to have you here in Kuwait with us, definitely soon. And we're gonna spread, of course, the wisdom that you shared with us today in this podcast among our listeners and viewers. Thank you so much. If you have any last word before we conclude.
No, I think it's a, leadership, I say, is a journey without a destination. So you have to, you reach milestones, you achieve milestones, but there is no fixed destination, and it's a continuous journey. And I'm so grateful and thankful for being able to witness many of those journeys. So I think that's what I like about my work.
Good. And I'm going to quote you on that: journey without destination. Leadership is, this is your quote, and we're going to name it after you, Dr. Murali. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate your time, and looking forward definitely to have you in person among us very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.